Hey Patriots, welcome back to another episode of As I See It. I'm so excited to be back. Many of you know who follow me on my other channel, my RV channel. I haven't been feeling well. I got valley fever, which is something that you get from all the dust and stuff in the desert. And I'm finally feeling better. Not 100%, but I'm feeling better. And I want to talk today about something that has been kind of a cause that I'm championing right now. And I wanted to share it with you. I want to share, of course, the history and what we can do today to affect change. Because just because I'm not even going to say his name anymore, a former person is out of office doesn't mean our work is over. There is a lot of work that needs to be done. We've got midterms in 2 years. We need to keep the House and the Senate. And I'm going to talk today about something that we also need to do to make sure that we get our policies passed that are really good for the people. We, meaning I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal, in case you didn't figure that out. So today I'm going to talk all about the filibuster. I'm going to talk about what a filibuster is. I'm going to talk about the history of filibuster in the United States. I'm going to talk about what it has meant to our Congress and our laws and our legislation over the last couple of decades. And then I'm going to talk about what it means to the Democratic majority in Senate today and why it needs to be changed. Why this is basically to say that we need to get rid of the filibuster. And so I'm going to go through quite a bit of information for all of you who like history. So first of all, I thought this was really interesting. I learned something like I always do in my research. Where do you think the word filibuster comes from? Any ideas? The word filibuster has been around since at least the 1500s, and they think it's a French or maybe Dutch origin, and it came from the word for pirate. It's kind of fitting, isn't it? Pirate is where filibuster came from. It literally meant freebooters, pirates who raided and stole. That's where the word filibuster comes from. It comes from the word that means to rob and to plunder. No mistake, really, right? And today the filibuster is a strategy used by the minority party in Congress, in Senate. It's a tool used by the minority to obstruct the majority party's bills from getting voted on. So a filibuster today in the United States is really a tool that the minority party uses to obstruct any legislation from even getting voted on by the majority party. And I've got a lot of fun stuff today that we're going to talk about as far as the history. But let's talk about the history. Well, let's go back to 1805. The Senate was much smaller than it is today. It only had 34 senators as opposed to the 100 that we have today, because there were only, I guess that makes it 17 states. And the filibuster wasn't even a thing yet. But the senators, the young Senate and the smaller Senate, they always debated on bills before they voted on them. Any legislation that came before the Senate, there was a lot of debate, which there should be. That's healthy democracy. That's healthy anything, right? There's always a debate, and hopefully you come to some kind of a mutual agreement. There's a little compromise here, there's a little compromise there. You debate things, and then And debating also allows the other side to hear your arguments, right? And that the hope is to maybe change some minds, that maybe to have a great enough case for or against something that you can change minds. That's what a healthy debate, and I believe a healthy democracy should be about. Healthy debates over the important issues with the ability and openness to maybe change your mind, to listen to the other side. So that's what they did in the early days. In 1805, they were debating before they would vote on a bill. If they wanted to end the debate, so there was always a session of debating before they voted, if they wanted to end that, then just a simple majority needed to agree. Okay, I've heard enough. Let's move on. Let's vote. I don't need to hear anymore. How many of you have ever been in long meetings? That guy who just loves to hear the sound of his own voice. And that's what they were able to do in the young Senate. They were able to just say, okay, we've heard enough. And a simple majority, meaning just half, just over half, one more than half, would be able to vote and say, okay, we've heard enough, now let's go to the vote. But then Aaron Burr the third vice president and vice president of Thomas Jefferson believed that there should be as much debate as needed. He's like, no, you know what? There's really no need to end debate. We should be able to debate as much and as long as we want. And he got rid of the majority rule. He said, yeah, no more. People are just going to talk as long as they need to talk, and there is no more rule to end this pre-vote debate. So back in 1805, Aaron Burr got rid of the rule that you can end debate before voting on a bill. Now the Senate can debate as long as they want. There's no limit. They can go on forever. And there's no way to stop them. And that's the beginnings of the modern day filibuster. Robbing and plundering. I'm going to keep bringing that up because I think it's key. Words matter. So at first it wasn't a big problem. It really wasn't. Even though Aaron Burr decided that everybody should be able to talk at length and as long as they wanted, it really wasn't a problem in the beginning because Senate was still small, 34 compared to 100 senators. So even if everybody on the Senate, or at least the half that was trying to obstruct or filibuster, the half that wanted to continue debate, 17 people, if they wanted to keep talking, I mean, how long can a person really talk, right? So people would get tired, and Senate would get tired of listening to them, and, so it would just kind of fizzle out, and it wasn't really a big problem in the beginning. Fast forward to 1917. World War I has taken hold across the whole, much of the world, or at least the Western world. And Woodrow Wilson wanted Senate approval for a sweeping military action. And the Senate was like, oh, hell no. Nope, they didn't want it. They didn't want to vote for this. So they debated or filibustered until the session ended. And this angered Woodrow Wilson. He was so angry about this that he was like, yeah, no, we're going back to the old rule before Aaron Burr changed it, that there has to be a way to end this ongoing debate. And he was like, yep, we're going back to the simple majority to end debate because this is just not working for me. And the senators were like, yeah, no, we don't want to change it. So the compromise was basically what we have today, where a supermajority needs to vote to end the debate or the filibuster. So what that means is you currently need 67 senators just to vote on a bill. Does that make sense? And then once you vote on the bill, you just need a simple majority, which is 51, to get the vote passed. It's kind of real, the red tape of government, right? Also, what that means is you just need 41 senators to filibuster. Just 41 out of 100 senators can completely disrupt, plunder, obstruct anything the majority wants to do, because you need 67 in order to end the filibuster. We're going to get to that in a minute. There's a lot more on that. Fast forward to 1950 and Strom Thurmond. Has anybody ever heard of this? Is the most famous probably of the filibusters, the longest filibuster on record. Strom Thurmond, a senator from South Carolina, filibustered. Can you guess how long he filibustered for? By himself. 24 hours and 18 minutes. Strom Thurmond was so against the Civil Rights Act, which basically confirmed that African American men could vote. He was so against, basically it put in protections so that they were allowed to vote because, in the southern states, even though the 19th Amendment had been passed, a lot of southern states were still obstructing African American men from voting. So the Civil Rights Act was going to make it nationally like they couldn't do that anymore. And Strom Thurmond was so against it that he stood on the Senate floor for 24 hours and 18 minutes and talked. So this was in 1957. And he filibustered on the grounds that it was unconstitutional and cruel and unusual punishment. Cruel and unusual punishment. That's something else. That takes some audacity, right? To say that giving blacks the ability to not get fire hosed standing in line or trying to vote or get turned away or all the other obstructionist things that many of the southern states were doing to prevent the black men from their constitutional right to vote. He thought it was unconstitutional. He thought it was unconstitutional and cruel and unusual to allow them to do that. And so he spent 24 hours and 18 minutes on the Senate floor reading the Declaration of Independence, the election laws of each state in alphabetical order, He read a Supreme Court ruling, the Bill of Rights, and George Washington's farewell address. You can talk about anything you want during a filibuster. It does not have to be related to what's at hand, to the bill that's at hand. You can talk about anything you want. And other senators helped Strom Thurmond rest his voice by asking questions, rebuking him. So they would take the floor with these rebukes and these questions, allowing him. So they enabled him to do this. There were 2 breaks so that Senate could do business, and Strom Thurmond had 1 break about 3 hours in to use the restroom. They allowed him to do that. He was so committed to not allowing black men who were given the constitutional right to vote. He was so committed to not letting this pass that for days leading up to this vote, he went to steam rooms, he stopped drinking, he dehydrated his body so that he wouldn't have to use the restroom. That's how committed he was to not letting the Equal Rights Amendment pass. Luckily for all of us, he didn't succeed. After 24 hours and 18 minutes, the bill passed anyway. In the end, his little stunt, his little obstruction, his little rob and plunder of the American people and their rights. Remember, the person who does this is in the minority party, right? He's in the minority. This is not what the American people want. And think about how committed he had to be, even though he was in the minority. So the civil rights passed anyway, but his little stunt consumed 84 pages of congressional record, and this is in 1957, and cost taxpayers $8,000 in printing costs. But he's not the only one. Senator Alphonse D'Amato held a 23-hour filibuster to stop voting on a 1986 military spending bill, literally by reading the phone book. Yeah. These are the people who run our country. These are grown, supposedly men, running our country. And these are the stunts they're pulling in the Congress of the United States of America. And in 1935, Huey Long was notorious for his filibuster. He read Shakespeare and recited recipes for hours. So the filibuster isn't new. You know, it's something that's been around for a while. And after Strom Thurmond's little stunt, his 24 hours and 18 minutes of reading, whatever he could get his hands on, it sounds like, and dehydrating his body so he wouldn't have to go to the bathroom for days before the event. You know what I'm thinking of right now? Suicide bombers. People who go to unusual, most people would say insane lengths for a cause. What's the word I'm looking for? Not radicalized. Yeah, radicalized. Makes you think, doesn't it? So much of what we take for granted about the people who have run our country over the past couple hundred years, and you look back at their antics and you gotta wonder, is this the behavior of someone who's sane, thinking clearly? Sure, there's an argument to be made for fighting for a cause you believe in, but doing that much to prevent another person from exercising their constitutional right when the majority has spoken and the Supreme Court has spoken? So in the 1950s, after this stunt by Strom Thurmond, the Senate Majority Leader decided, we're not doing this anymore. I am not going to put my Senate, you got to laugh at the thinking, we're not going to put Senate through that anymore. Because not only did Strom Thurmond have to stand up there and talk for 24 hours, Senate had to sit there and listen to it. And the Senate Majority Leader said, yeah, you know what, we're not doing that anymore. So he created a shortcut. So no longer will Senate have to sit through this tiresome, long, and pointless grandstanding just to get to the vote. We're going to use the threat of a filibuster instead. We'll just go right to the vote. So remember, you need 2 votes to get a bill passed. You need the vote to vote on the bill, which needs a supermajority, and then you need the vote on the bill, which gets the majority. So this Senate Majority Leader in the 1950s, after Strom Thurmond, said, yeah, you know what, that was so boring, and it was just, that was just too much for me. I'm verklempt. I'm exhausted. So we're just going to skip that step. Let's go straight to the vote. How many people would vote to end a filibuster if we were to have a filibuster? So before the 1950s, there weren't a lot of filibusters. You can see there's a graph, and I'll put all the links below. You can kind of check out my sources for yourself. But before the 1950s and 1970s, there weren't a lot of filibusters. The line was pretty flat. But then this guy, I don't remember his name, decided to create a shortcut. So no more filibuster. We're just going to threaten to filibuster. And if we can get a majority of the minority, a supermajority of the minority, to say that they will not vote to end the filibuster, then we're holding the majority hostage. I know this is confusing. Does it make sense, though? So what he did is he eliminated the actual work part of a filibuster. So the filibuster didn't take off in the early days because it was a lot of work. It's a lot of work for somebody to stand up there and talk for 24 hours. And this Senate Majority Leader just said, yeah, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore. That's too hard. So we're just going to create a shortcut. And that's the system we have today. That's why we don't have Mitch McConnell standing up there reading the phone book or reading the Constitution, because that's just too hard. Obstruction can't be that hard for us. The audacity. We're not going to put in the work to obstruct. We're just going to create it's just mind-boggling how these people think. These are the people who are running our country. So from then on, and especially in the 200s, we saw a huge spike. I mean, the graph goes like this, and then a little bit like this, and then spikes in the 2000s as the filibuster just takes off. Because now it's so easy. We don't have to sit around. We don't have to dehydrate our bodies for 3 days. We can just take a shortcut and vote on the vote to vote to vote to vote to not to vote to supermajority. It's confusing. But in the 2000s, we saw a spike when the minority party in Congress started just filibustering everything. Basically, every major legislation that went before the Senate to ask to be voted on was filibustered. So basically, that's when what we have today really started to take hold. So that brings us to today. Where are we with the filibuster today? Anybody who's been paying attention to the news the last several years knows that it's a favorite tool by obstructionist Mitch McConnell. And basically, it's really just a simple procedural tool that allows the minority to block any legislation put forth by the majority. So nothing has been able to get passed. So really what it sounds like to me, or what it feels like to me, or what it should feel like to the entire country, is the minority is holding the majority hostage. The majority was elected free and fairly by the American people to legislate, to pass bills that are going to help us, that are going to help our environment and help get jobs and with health care. And the minority, the people who lost, have this tool that allows them to block everything. Does that make any sense at all? And so there's a lot of talk right now about abolishing the filibuster, which I'm a complete proponent of. I'm going to talk to you in a minute about how we can do that, maybe, as citizens. It's super easy. If we want to abolish the filibuster, all we need is a simple majority in Senate to do so. That's it. A simple majority in the Senate needs to say, yeah, you know what? No more filibuster. This isn't working. This is not for the good of the country and the American people. Let's end the filibuster. So my question is, why are the Democrats not doing it? Why are we not doing it? I hope that they've got some bigger strategic plan that they're working on. I don't know, but I know I'm not the only one who's getting a little frustrated with the Democrats who seem to be allowing the Republicans and Mitch McConnell to push them around and bully them, right? So Mitch McConnell, on the other hand, so whenever we want to rebalance something, whenever the Democrats want to take back their control, which they rightfully own, I mean, they won. We won the House. We won the Senate. We won the presidency, fair and square. We have the right to govern and not be obstructed by pirates who are looting and plundering and stealing from us. And it's not, and Mitch McConnell wants to make it sound like, oh my gosh, getting rid of the filibuster, that's crazy, that's obstructionist, that's taking away the tools. A lot of people think it's part of the Constitution, and it's not. So the rules of the filibuster have been changed before. This isn't new. The thing is, it seems like one party, it seems like oftentimes what happens is the rules change depending on the needs of the party in power. In 2013, the Democratic majority changed the filibuster so that it doesn't apply to certain confirmation votes. They wanted cabinet confirmations or whatever, and the minority Republicans were obstructing, so they changed the rules and said, okay, we're going to change the filibuster, but only as it applies to confirmations, not anything else. And then later, that was 2013. And then in 2017, the Republicans under Mitch McConnell changed the filibuster rules again. Do you know why? For Supreme Court justices. The Democrats were threatening to filibuster Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. And so Mitch McConnell changed the rules, as he often does. Like seating a Supreme Court justice in the last year of a presidency. How long did it take to confirm Amy Coney Barrett? A month? So Mitch McConnell changed the filibuster rule and said, yeah, okay, the filibuster no longer applies to Supreme Court nominations. So stop it. You can't filibuster anymore, minority party. And we're going to push through Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. So when you hear Republicans scream that Democrats are overreaching or that they're trying to hijack America or that they're not democratic because they want to get rid of the filibuster, keep in mind the history of filibuster. Number one, it's not in the Constitution. Where it came from, it kind of evolved over time and it's changed. I mean, the majority party has changed the rules several times throughout history. Mitch McConnell himself has changed the rules when it has benefited him. So why is that not like top priority right now to end the filibuster so that they can get the legislation passed that they were voted? We, the majority, 84 million people voted for Biden. We, the people, spoke. We are the majority in Congress. Why are they not doing everything in their power to represent us properly without obstruction and pirating? And here's the other thing. Sometime in the 1800s, the filibuster was also in the House. Right now, we only hear about it in the Senate because it's no longer a thing in the House. They abolished it. They were like, yeah, no more of that. This isn't effective. This isn't how we get our jobs done. This isn't how we represent the American people and the will of the American people. So in the 1800s, they got rid of the filibuster in the House. And it's hung on in the Senate for some reason. And in the recent past, the filibuster has been used by the minority, the party that lost. Filibuster has been used to obstruct gun violence legislation, Medicare for all, the Dreamers Act, climate control. And they use this as a tool to say when the Democrats are in office, they can't get anything done. Well, yeah, we can't get anything done because you're pirating the ship. You're looting the ship. You're taking over the ship and stealing everything away from us. So that's what McConnell did a lot under the Obama administration. Look, they can't get anything done. Yeah, because you won't let us. So it's really important for us to pressure our lawmakers to end the filibuster. I've already written to my 2 Democratic senators. I got a canned, weak response from one of them that I was not happy with, Jackie Rosen. It was conciliatory. It's time for the Democrats to stand up and fight. I don't understand this. Why we don't fight harder. Why we don't take what's rightfully ours, you know? I mean, not through violent means, but by using the Constitution, by setting an example. If we were allowed to pass much of the legislation that we've been wanting to pass over the past decades, we may not have been in a situation where somebody like T would have been elected 4 years ago. But much of the bills and much of the legislation that Democrats want to get passed for the American people is obstructed by the pirates in the name of a filibuster, a simple tool that's not part of the Constitution. So I urge you to write to your Democratic senators. I'm going to write to mine again. I might write every day. Call your Democratic senators. Inform the people that you know who are around you about what the filibuster is and what it isn't and why it's important that we abolish it. Take to social media. Tag, if you're on Twitter, tag your representatives. One of the other things is I get emails all the time from the Joe Biden campaign, from Act Blue, and all the other Democratic causes that I have contributed to, asking me for money, and I'm writing back, the ones that don't have no reply. Some of them have feedback, and I'm writing back and saying no money until you abolish the filibuster. I'm sick and tired of the Democratic Party playing nice. We can't play nice. I mean, you know what I mean. I'm not saying that we do what T's people did, but the gloves have to come off at some point. You know, not this conciliatory, we're going to try to negotiate. You can't negotiate with a pirate. Pirates don't negotiate. They steal and plunder and take. They don't negotiate. So that's where we are. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. So you've also heard the word probably cloture. I should have said this earlier, but the word cloture, what is cloture? To end a filibuster, you need a supermajority. And if you get a supermajority to end the filibuster, that's called cloture. So basically the vote to end the filibuster is called cloture, C-L-O-T-U-R-E. Okay, right. One more thing. So according to indivisible.org, what they say is that Senate Democrats can introduce a big package of democracy reforms like DC statehood, expanding voting rights. Mitch McConnell, who is the self-proclaimed grim reaper of progressive legislation, then indicates a filibuster. Democrats can then hold a vote, and with just 50 votes, they can eliminate the filibuster and prevent McConnell from vetoing the legislation. That's all it takes. Super easy. They can do it anytime. But indivisible.org laid out a whole scenario of how this could happen. I'll put a link to that in the video description so you can check it out. I urge every single one of you to pester the heck out of your Democratic senators. Let them know that you're sick and tired of this pussyfooting around and that it's time to end the filibuster so that we can get our progressive policies passed for the good of the American people. And call, write, email, do whatever it takes to get heard. I think that we're in an era now of people taking to the street, of people taking action. Each of us needs to take action if we want to see real change and not another occurrence of the past 4 years. In the next 4 years, in the next election. You know what I mean. All right, I hope you found that helpful. What are your thoughts? How are you going to get involved to convince your Democratic senators to end filibuster, to abolish filibuster? What are you going to do? All right, I'll see you next time. I have more to come. Let me know what you want to hear in future videos. All right, we'll talk to you soon. See you later.